Call to Arms. After a short delay, Tool revives all incapacitated squads and teleports them to his location. If vulnerable, effect passively triggers when he kills enemies. By default, Tool cannot revive fallen allies. This ability is the only way to do it for him. It works pretty funny, especially when Tool passively teleports fallen squads. It also has a fairly large radius, but in the end, the ability just isn't really necessary. Defensive weapons. Can use his weapons during Ancient Defender repair. It sounds incredibly powerful. You trigger it and stand shooting while constantly healing, but it's not all that great. Tool still cannot use other abilities, and as you remember, he is a skill-based character, so his normal range damage is not particularly impressive. Besides, if you are using the Melter, you pretty much have to be right next to your target to deal any decent damage. Fearsome. Assault Cannon suppresses enemy units. Quite a good talent. Suppressed enemies move and reload their weapons much slower. It's not the strongest debuff out there, but it's not useless either. Initially, the Heavy Bolter applies suppression, but by the time this ability is obtained, Avitus will already be wearing Terminator armor. This talent is optional, but not a bad one. Fiery Doom. Melter Sweep now much stronger. If you plan to use Melter, this is a must-have, as the damage boost is indeed significant. Melter Sweep itself is a bit of a meme. It should not be considered as an alternative to Assault Cannon Barrage in terms of mowing down crowds of infantry. In open areas, the sweep might miss most of the enemies entirely. But in narrow passages, where enemies are crowded together, it deals simply insane damage. Another thing, while not the most convenient ability to use, Sweep is extremely effective against large bosses like Tyrant, Avatar and so on. Attack with press down Z, commanded to go in melee, and when the Dreadnought reaches the target, simply use Sweep behind the boss. Voila! Half of the HP bar is gone. Melter itself is generally inferior to Assault Cannon, simply because of its much lower DPS, which can be partially compensated for by shooting at point-blank range, but only partially. Therefore, it all comes down to how well you use Melter Sweep. Stunning blows. Close combat strikes now have a chance to stun. First off, you don't need to use close for this ability. Even with a ranged weapon, Tool hits pretty well in melee. On the downsides, well, it's got all the usual drawbacks of a slow melee Dreadnought, plus, by this point, you probably already have plenty of stuns available. Tool himself even has the Emperor's Might, which stuns in AoE. But overall, the talent is not useless and can be taken depending on the situation. Fury of the Ancient increases the range of charge and it now kills regular infantry. All the usual downsides of the charge still apply, while what doesn't one-shot regular infantry? Detonation. Explodes on death? Dreadnought usually died to range damage, so explosions are often nothing more than fireworks. Building any strategy around detonation is just meme. But in the context of the next skill, it looks funny as sort of plan B. Machine Duel. Tool challenges the enemy Walker. If he wins duel, allies gain combat bonuses until the end of the deployment. It's hard to say exactly what bonuses are given, but one thing is certain – HP. Approximately 200 to each squad, except Tool himself. Remember when I mentioned during the Commander and Tarkus ability discussions that there is a much better way to boost health? Well, here it is. It's entirely possible to double or even triple your starting HP with this ability. On the downside, not every mission has a lot of walkers, and it's not always convenient to take them down one by one. However, the real question isn't about the downsides, it's whether you actually need this at all. The HP bonus is useful, but after a certain point, adding more doesn't really make much of a difference. The ability is interesting, yet optional. And yes, it's better to damage the target first before using a duel, otherwise Tool might actually lose it. As always, start with Ancient Defender, Halo Fury, the Emperor's Might and Holy Vigor. This is your build. Unfortunately, Tool doesn't have much variety here. Then just add whatever you like. If you plan to use Assault Cannon, then take Machine Duel, mostly for fun, and later Fearsome as a small pension bonus. And if you choose Melter, go straight for Fiery Doom, as the damage boost to Melter Sweep is too significant, and then add Venerable.